Cecilia, welcome to the
Hi.
Secret Sesh. Thank you so much for getting lit with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you for supporting great moments in weed history. It means a lot. And for coming out to our live show in Portland.
Yeah, of course, of course. It was my pleasure. I found y'all's podcast like a handful of years ago when I started like my cannabis journey, and I've just kind of been along for the ride since then, and was really excited to see y'all in Portland. And now here we are, getting to talk again and smoke and sesh. So
All right,
really
well,
excited.
let's make it a true sesh. I've got some lovely stuff from up in Northern California. What do you got to sesh with today?
I rolled a little something up. It's a little. I like to roll them pretty fat, so I really usually roll like a short one, but a fat one sort of deal. Little. I don't remember if I grabbed the Amnesia Skittles or the Durban Poison off the counter, but I grabbed one up this morning, and then here we are.
Well, if you don't remember, I'm guessing it might be the Amnesia Skittles, but that's just a bad punny joke. But that's my stock and trade. I'm lit up. Thank you so much, and wanted to talk to you for all kinds of reasons. But let's start with something I think a lot of people are really interested in. You are working currently as a bud tender, correct?
Yes and no. I actually just left my last shop, and I'm kind of looking around for another shop right now. Not for any major like big awful reasons or anything. Was kind of just looking for a change. But yeah, I was a trimmer in Colorado for a little bit, and then for the last year, I've been like a bud tender and a manager over here in the Washington, Seattle area. So that's been fun. It's been a journey, and just getting to work with all the customers, and then also like being able to talk to all the vendors and really get to know them and learn about their facilities, their growth, and everything that goes into the industry here has been like really really cool.
Amazing. Yeah, that's it's really the ground level place to be in cannabis, and I think I've had some experience, in the unlicensed trimming world, and really love that experience as well. And another, accessible job for people that are looking to get into the industry. What would you say you've learned along the way that people might find interesting, and particularly people who visit and spend their money at dispensaries? How can you what do bud tenders know that we don't know?
Um, so with the Washington market, each category has its own limit. Because I know certain states like Colorado, where I'm from originally, it's like you're allowed up to an ounce like per day that you can buy, but then there's also like 8 grams of concentrate is like an ounce in Colorado sort of deal. But here everything is separate. Meaning you can buy an ounce of flour and you can get 7 grams of concentrate and like a bunch of liquid edibles and a bunch of solid edibles. But then my real secret to that is, since the liquid edibles, we measure the limit based off of the quantity, like the ounces, not the amount of THC in it. Buy the little shots, like the little drink shots, and you can get way more of them for like a lot cheaper. And then you can just like cut them with regular lemonade at home.
Oh, that's a very good tip. And when did your, if you're comfortable talking about it, when did your cannabis journey begin, and when did you kind of realize this is important to me and something I want to make a part of my life?
For sure. For sure. Well, I'll start by saying, like I'm really young. I'm 23. So like I'm really kind of just getting into this, really just getting into the industry and that sort of thing. But I'd say for me, it really started kind of around like 19, like senior year. I'd kind of had like an edible here, and then like would smoke occasionally after work with like some coworkers, but like nothing major. But really about 19, I started smoking for help with like nausea and like insomnia and trouble sleeping and that sort of thing. and really saw how much it could help me. And it was also right around that time that I found y'all's podcast. And I really like started listening to your podcast and getting super into that and all the history of cannabis. And truthfully, it really was you and Abdullah that really got me passionate about the industry and wanting to join the industry. So that was why I was also really excited you reached out, because I knew you were going to ask this question, and I was going to be able to say it was you guys. It was you guys that really like inspired me to like pursue the industry, not just like enjoy it like myself on the side.
Oh, that's very kind to say, and very much appreciated, and it means a lot anytime we hear from any of you all who support the show, that you get a sense of community from it, because that's really why we started the show, and why I'm here talking with you today. So it sounds like the trimming job was the first one, and I don't know if that was on the books, off the books, and we have love for all of it, as long as it's being done ethically and with good intention. So without incriminating anybody or any details like that, what was that job like, and you know what was it like to be around the plant itself so much? That's about as close as you get to the plant without being a grower.
For sure, no, for sure. And I mean, I will even say like my official title was like a trimmer, but we really were like one big team in that facility. And while all of us had our main teams there, we would all kind of like float around. So I did get my chances to actually go in the grow rooms, be with the live plants, help with the takedown, that sort of thing. But ultimately, like I like to joke that like unless I was in the room like right during takedown when they smelled super fucking loud, or like I was shoving my face like in a barrel of weed, at the end of the day, like I couldn't just smell weed anymore because there was just so much of it. I was just nose blind to how much like weed there was. But it was super nice. Our personal facility was almost all of it was hand trimmed. We'd occasionally do like a little bit. We near the end of my time there, we'd just gotten like a machine and we would do like a light tumble just to knock some of the big stuff off, but would then go in and hand trim all the little like crow's feet and like get the stems and break it down, that sort of thing. That we were given like the nicest like trim we could, no stems, no extra leaf, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's great. I could say my own experiences trimming were less regulated, but really, one of the best experiences of my life. If you go back a few secret sessions, I read kind of an excerpt from a book I'm working on, sort of remembering those times. And for me, I grew up on the East Coast. I smoked weed all the time, from when I was younger than, I would say, but no judgment there either. And um, coming out to this trim scene was the first time I was around live plants, was the first time I was around the culture. I had never met growers. So it really had a huge impact on me. Um, but I will say this: I was not a very good trimmer. How are you? It is
um
skilled labor.
I'm not gonna like quantify it in any certain way other than like I will say I was a temp at my place and then was hired on permanently, so good enough for that. But I would say there was definitely people that were trimming faster than me and better than me. I was still like young and new at it, but I was good enough to go from being a temp to being like a permanent like hire. So that
Well,
was
there you go. You were
that was fun.
better.
That felt good.
You were better than me, for sure. What about these sort of this is something I'm really curious about, because my experiences with the cannabis industry are either doing what I do, writing and making media, or things that were not in a licensed store. Um, so what do you feel like the people that you work with felt called to the plant, or is it like working at a liquor store and people just see it as a job? How did that break down for you?
Um, I would say I would say you get like a mixed bag. I would say ultimately everybody there enjoys weed to some degree more so than like the average like smoker does. But I wouldn't say like necessarily everybody in a dispensary on the bud tender level is like, yes, like I am here. This is going to be my career. This is what I want to do with my life. But everybody loves weed. Everybody there working there loves weed and just has a certain amount of knowledge, some more than others, about weed, and is there to like help you. So that part still is like tracks. That part is still there, but yeah, definitely on that just like lower bud tending level. For some people, they're just clocking in, doing the job, and they're just a smoker that's there to get paid.
What what were some of the questions? I think this is, a lot of people would like to get that job, and particularly people who live in places, and shout out to all of you, where it's not legal yet and it's not an option, but they're looking down the road and feeling hopeful and saying, that could be my foot in the door. What was the job application process like? What kind of questions were you asked? And what advice might you have for people who are anticipating trying to get that kind of job?
For sure, for sure. I mean, similarly to this interview, they ask a lot of the same questions, like, what has been your cannabis journey? What brings you here? What brings you to the industry? That sort of thing. But I'll say, even applying here in Washington for a bud tending job with having trimming on my resume, I had to apply to a lot of dispensaries and then only got like interviews with like a few of them. And then only my last one had called me back at that point. So like it is a pretty tough market to get into. There's a lot of people vying for these like bud tending positions. And so what I would say is ultimately just keep trying, just keep applying, just keep trying. Someone will hire you, someone will take a chance on you. And then going forward, you've now got that on your resume. You've now got that experience. And I would also say, pick pick up a little side knowledge, pick up some weed facts. Those always look good on interviews, whether it be dropping words like terpenes or mentioning fun little facts about like Brownie Mary and all the work she did in like California and like something you learned on the podcast, just having like something to be like, I know a little bit. I know a little bit more than the average consumer. I can help in the shop sort of deal. And I always say, I forget where I heard it, but there's always somebody getting paid to do the job you want to do, and they're doing a worse job than you could. So just keep applying, keep trying, even if you don't think that you can do it. If you want to do it, just keep trying.
Well, I'm going to apply that to podcasting, but I'm not going to say who I have in mind. Could be somebody's favorite. No, that's great advice. And the only thing I might add is, um, it can be hard to get a job, but it's not hard to get involved in activism. And even if cannabis is legal where you live, it can be improved, and there's people who are trying to make sure medical patients have better access. There's people who are trying to make sure that the industry itself is more equitable and fair and not just controlled by the big moneyed interests that control so many other things. So, and if you're in a state where it's not legal now and you get involved now in the activism to legalize it and to legalize it in the right way, that we should all be doing that just because it is our moral obligation as people who love this plant. But that will also connect you with people who feel the same way, and you will, believe me, be in a great position when legalization happens. You'll have learned a lot, and of course, everything you can do to educate yourself about the plant will be to your benefit.
For
Okay,
sure, for sure. And I'd say, and
customers.
on that
Oh,
level, just real quick, I'd say on that level, on the lowest level, look at who you're buying your weed from. For example, here, like K Savage is a brand here, and a portion of all of their proceeds go to Last Prisoner Project. So on the lowest level, just look at where you put your money.
Yeah, and who grew your cannabis and how. And that gets me to the customer perspective. You know, for a lot of people, this is still a new experience, purchasing cannabis legally and having options beyond take it or leave it that you might get from a traditional, uh, you know, legacy type of dealer. What are some good questions to ask, and of course, what are the annoying questions that people ask when you are behind the counter at a dispensary?
Um, I will say at this point, I get semi frustrated when people say like indica versus sativa because like we've talked about, you've mentioned on this podcast, like terpenes are a lot of it, but a lot of people don't know that. So I try to go the gentler route, steering them with the whole like what kind of high are you looking for, and I can kind of steer them towards like a certain strain and go that route. But a lot of people will be like, I want only an indica, but also I want this blank strain, and I'll be like, that's like definitely a sativa, my dude. But like because like it says like sativa on the bag, and so it'll be like those questions are kind of frustrating. But ultimately, I'd say like there's no bad question. I've got people coming in that are like 21 years old asking about it for their first time. I've got people coming in that are like 75, 80 years old that have been like, I only know brickweed from back in the day. This is like overwhelming to me. Like, can you kind of explain a few things? And being able to explain things like CBG, CBN, and other cannabinoids that they might not have heard of besides CBD and THC. Um, because yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I'd say there were no dumb questions because I loved educating like the customers. That's why I did it. That's why I was in the industry. And like that's why I said at the beginning, like I was leaving my last job. I was trying to shift away from the management front because I missed being out on the floor as a bud tender, working with the customers and being able to teach them about like everything I knew, and then directed them towards resources to learn more if they really wanted to.
Gotcha. And what just anybody that's not aware, the Washington State legal cannabis market is one of the oldest. One of the Colorado and Washington, in essence, legalized for adult use, recreational use on the same night about 10 years ago. A little more than 10 years ago. You can go back in our archives and listen to our episode with Wanda James about Colorado's experience during that campaign to legalize. Washington State's dispensaries took a little longer to open, and so Colorado really got, in essence, the spotlight for being the first one to open the stores. But Washington, it's as mature a market as anywhere in this country. What's new and exciting on the shelves, and what can you point to as trends happening that people might be, seeing coming their way a little later?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Um, I will say I've seen an up and like people buying the disposable vapes. So not just the screw on cartridges now, but just the ones you can like grab, rip, hit, and then when it's done, you just toss it. And I love how convenient those are for like traveling or like the newer smokers. I'm sad a little bit on the inside because that's a lot of like one use, single use plastic and like waste. When like that's one of the issues with like the cannabis industry right now is all the single use like plastic and packaging and everything. But that being said, like I said, they're very convenient, they're nice, they're an easy, very gentle little hit. um, but I would say one of the biggest things I saw people really kind of leaning towards more once they were kind of like learned about it was the CBG and CBN edibles, and having that like alt cannabinoid like effect in there with the THC, and being able to combine those and really get the exact high that they're looking for, and saw people really enjoying that like entourage effect. Um,
Yeah, that's really
trying to think.
fascinating. Particularly to see it at the retail level. We've known about THC. Depending on, there's a reason there's not an episode of this story about the discovery of THC, because it is a very contested story at this point. Um, but we're going back at least to the 60s. A lot of the science about CBD started to come through research overseas, because the United States was suppressing, still and still is, research into the benefits of this plant. But in an academic way, we knew about CBD in the 1980s. Not me. I was too young. I'm younger than you think. And then by the 90s, and the 2000s, you started to see CBD come into the gene pool. People realized the medical benefits of CBD, realized that it could be medicinal for people without being psychoactive, or nearly as psychoactive as THC. Then you had that Sanjay Gupta special that really kind of took it from an underground understanding to a flood of interest in CBD. And now, just people may not even, be aware that there are many compounds in cannabis that are unique to cannabis. And that's when we say cannabinoids, that's what we mean, and that includes CBD, THC, but also, as you said, CBN, CBG. Some of these that are just becoming available to people. A lot of people say, and there's anecdotal evidence for sure, that CBN can help with insomnia, which or simply any kind of sleep disruption, which that's a very serious thing if that's the thing that is affecting you personally. I think a lot of people who don't have that kind of think like, oh yeah, it's nice to smoke a little and fall asleep. But when you look at the alternatives, the pharmaceutical drugs that people will be given to help sleep, if you can find a cannabis way to help you sleep, the health benefits of that versus pharmaceuticals are huge. And so it's cool. What form are these? CBN particularly. It's. Did you say it was edibles or flower, or how are people kind of getting it?
So the CBN and CBG, I'd say the form I see it in most, not just in the dispensary I previously worked at, but in like all of them is edibles, yes. And beyond that is gummies typically I've noticed have been the most common for the CBG and for the CBN, and then probably drinks after that. But also there are some chocolates. There are like it's around. There are all around. Not every dispensary carries every brand. So a lot of those things are out and about. But definitely, if we're like to shout out one of the favorite brands I liked here with CBN edibles was Wild. They're in a couple states.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah.
I just also realized this is truly a sesh. Like, I'm a little lit up. It's my first smoke of the day. It's the morning time. I talked to you about Washington State, knowing that you live in Oregon,
No,
by
I live in
mistake.
Washington. I live in Washington. You're right.
Oh yeah, that's right. You drove down to the
Yeah,
show. That's
yeah,
right.
no, no, yeah, but
Okay.
no, you're totally right. This is definitely a sesh. I don't know if like you caught it, but this is joint number two. My partner's sitting right here and is just like lighting the joint for me and like passing it over. So
Oh, nice. Well, we are on the same wavelength, and yeah. So that was, um, yeah, what it was really great that you were able to come out to that live show. And now, of course, I remember to travel a few hours to see us. And I will just say, my best memory of the show, I loved doing it, and but was we had like an hour long sesh with, I'd say, like at
yep,
least half the people who came out stayed and smoked for
yeah, no,
like an hour.
that was a circle. That was a big circle. That's for sure. Like it was cool though. It was very cool. Yeah, no, getting to see your show and the little trivia at the beginning, that was fun, and it was very nice of y'all to like smoke everyone out. So like it was cool. It was cool to like be able to come see the show and see y'all live and just get to just get to watch the magic happen like in person.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, to me, the whole thing was really magical, but like, it was so fun to get a chance to meet people after the show and really like talk with people. We've done a couple of live, we've done a few live shows, but mostly it's this, and even over Zoom. So, um, I would just say this kind of wrapping her up as a sesh. Like, I'm so happy that this is what the secret sessions are going to be, and I look forward to seshing with all of you who are interested in doing so. And you don't have to have a direct connection to the cannabis industry. I know if you listen to this show and you listen to these sessions that you have a deep love of this plant, and that's more than enough for us to connect on the secret sesh. And it sort of is like inspired by that experience of after the show, getting to sesh with yourself and so many people who came out. So thanks for session with me today. Any parting words for the GMIWH podcast universe?
Um, I don't think so. I'd just say like thank you for having me. Thank you for sessioning with me. It's always a pleasure to see like what you put out, and I'm excited to see what these secret sessions are gonna be like with all these interviews coming up. So, thank you so much, and everybody just enjoy getting high.
All right. Well, stay lit, everybody. And we'll see you next Weedness Day with another episode of Great Moments in Weed History. All right. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.